What's going on, YouTube? It's been a while, huh? I know I haven't done a video in a long time, and I apologize for that. I've just been really busy. Work keeps me busy from time to time. Sorry, I'm just moving around trying to get that stupid light out of my eye. I'm sure it's annoying, but got my spiffy new shirt on. Anyway, today I wanted to talk a little bit about the subtleties or the not so subtleties of mouthpieces, and I'm going to use Lotus mouthpieces as my example because while I have tons of other mouthpieces as well, of late I've been really I'm not really sure what happened. Like, I have a Lotus, the very first one I got was way back when they first offered these. I got a 3XLB, which is a 3 extra large in bronze material as the core instead of brass. They offer bronze, brass, which is the standard, and nickel. So, that was pretty interesting to me. So I'm like, well, maybe I'll try some strange materials and just see what it's like. But in any event, I got a 3XLB, and I popped it in a horn, I don't know, not too long ago. And all of a sudden, I remembered why I liked it so much. Now, here's my problem. I have easily, and I'm sure a lot of people are like this too, I have hundreds of mouthpieces. And I think that's just who I am as a person. Like, I have a whole bunch of guitars, bass guitars, trumpets, flugelhorns, and now mouthpieces as well. But I like to collect as much as I like to play. But that being said, the point of this is I wanted to compare or give you my thoughts on a whole bunch of different mouthpieces because, I understand not everybody can go below $1,000 on mouthpieces, and now that I say that out loud, that sounds even ridiculous for me. But, what are you going to do? These things are like between $150 and $200 a piece, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so, I have 7 of them. What are you going to do? But, what I thought was cool is I started to collect. So what I have now, let me just give you the list of what I have. I have, and these are all Lotus, right? So we'll do this through Lotus again. A 3XLB, a 3L, a 3L2, both in brass. I have a 3LN in nickel, and I also have some of the 3rd gen 3M and 3S. So 3rd gen. Here, let me hang on, grabbing one more. All right, so let me just grab a couple of these. So 1st gen is the 3XLB. Now, I don't know if you can see. Can you see that it's shiny on the inside? So they had a polished inner cup on the original series. Then they went to the Series 2. And now you can see that is a kind of like a brushed or, I don't know, a shot peened or scratched finish. Still in silver plating though. So this is my 3L. This is my primary mouthpiece now. And then I have a 3M and a 3S Gen 3. These are in this, I don't know, special kind of gold plating that Lotus is doing now on their 3rd generation mouthpieces. And this also has the scratched inside. So it's kind of got a texture in there. Now, I wouldn't have known that I really like that as much as I do. But I do also have a Ray Farr flugel mouthpiece that has that scratched inside as well. And then I also have a flugel. This is the 3XL flugel in bronze, Gen 1. So it's another shiny inside. Anyway, you would think, wow, what are you talking about? But there's definitely a tactile feel difference on all of these. I went with the 3 because I wanted consistency across the board with regard to the feel on my lips and my embouchure. But I guess I've gotten to a point where I'm probably going to end up owning a lot of the Line 3 mouthpieces because I really enjoy that size. It feels right at home for me, very comfortable. But I guess my point is, it's important to try different things out. And I know Lotus has some kind of returns policy. I'm not going to quote it because I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but they give you some period of time to try these things out. So while they are fairly expensive, I mean, $200 is $200, right? But I would say that it's worth the trial anyway, because, I mean, if you haven't played one of these before, it's kind of shocking how significant, and I may have said this before, but how significant a mouthpiece can change the way that you feel and play an instrument. I mean, I don't know how else to articulate that other than it's shocking, right? You wouldn't think that it would make that big of a difference, or maybe you would, but I never, as a student player, and I'm still a student now, but when I was an actual student in high school, I played a Bach 7 to get started, and then a Bach 5C, and then I ended my high school career on a 3C. And those are the only 3 mouthpieces I ever owned, played, anything. And I think that's a real miss for young students, and I hope that's not the case. Now, none of my children played musical instruments growing up, so I don't know that this is the case over the last 20 years for that era. But I really hope that band teachers of today give their students an opportunity to try some different things out. I have found significant playing differences when it comes to just changing the mouthpiece on the same horn. So if I take a Schilke B6, which I have, this is a Schilke B6, and this is, by all intents and purposes, a very standard, traditional-oriented, I think it's kind of an all-around trumpet. Schilke's, of course, high-end, but, similar to a Bach or, a Yamaha pro-level horn. This particular horn has an all-copper bell, but it's just a standard B6. I actually did have a John Faddis S42 model that I sold not too long ago because I did not care for the tuning bell on that horn. It has a little bit of a notch right here where it would hold the bell in place, and it just felt kind of strange to me. So this isn't really even an outstandingly high-end Schilke. This is a very traditional trumpet. My point being, with this horn and that variety of mouthpieces that I just showed, I mean, the horn changes so dramatically. And, you're probably like, well, Garrett, play something for us and show us this. The downside to that is on the cell phone, the way I'm recording this right now, you're not going to hear the difference. It's the phone doesn't have the detail in the microphone to pick up that kind of overall sound. I'd have to set it up on my actual recording studio and then do a bunch of editing. And, as I've complained before, I don't like doing that. So just take my word for it that these mouthpieces, though all a 3, are extremely different. And it's kind of shocking. Like, I wasn't expecting that big of a difference. Now, I understand that the material, so a brass, a bronze, or a nickel. All right, now those are going to be different because it's seemingly very different materials. That should do something different, and they definitely do. If you want like I don't know how to describe this. I think the brass mouthpiece is very typical in terms of response and what you would expect. The nickel mouthpiece is a little bit sizzly, and the bronze mouthpiece is diffused, I guess is the best way to say that. Now, I think range-wise, you can play the same on all of them, but there's different sound characteristics on all of them that are fairly dramatic. Like the bronze mouthpiece, for example, when you start to get up into the high register, it really diffuses out and just kind of like almost disappears and vanishes, becomes extremely airy up at the top for me. Similarly, like a 3M or a 3S in regular brass has a very airy sound low and in pianissimo and in quiet playing. And then when you really push it and step on the gas, so to speak, it just absolutely blows your head off. So what I've come to find out is that, and I probably haven't found, maybe they don't make something like this. Maybe it's something that I'd have to adjust in my playing or just accept that this is how it is. Most of these mouthpieces that I'm talking about, or if not all of them, have been designed for a live player. So someone that's going into an auditorium of some kind and playing with the natural acoustics in the room, as it would be for classical or, I guess jazz, but not microphones, right? Not with modern digital technology enhancements. So The problem with that is that some of these mouthpieces change timbre so dramatically that they're actually pretty difficult to record. And, you know, knowing this, the type of music that I do is pretty mellow and you know, Chet Bakery, if you will, at least in that kind of like airy, raspy horn sound that I'm trying to get. And, you know, sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. But I found that it's very difficult to record some of these mouthpieces in their full effect and what you can really do with them. It's pretty challenging. So keep that in mind, that my opinions are a little skewed in that regard, simply because that's what I do. I'm a studio musician. I don't play out and play live. So it would be really cool, because I found that these Lotus mouthpieces really play nicely and they're very loud and lots of presence to them. But I think the important takeaway is that even though they're very subtle differences, the way they're described, even on the website, it's something that I think everyone has to experience for themselves and try out themselves. And I know that's I'm sure you don't want to hear that, right? That's like saying, oh yeah, you got to go play 25 different horns to find the horn that's the right one for you. But unfortunately, that's kind of what you have to do in this game when you've gotten to a point where you want that something special that's just right for you. I haven't found the magic combination necessarily for me. I mean, it's very strange that some days I can play the B6 really well, and other days I can play, one of my brass spire horns are just like have the right sound, and then other times none of them, and it's only the flugelhorn that sounds right for me. So it's very subjective, right? And in terms of what you're looking for, what you're trying to do, and that really, in some way, muddied it up, because my objective was ultimately to have a single trumpet and a single mouthpiece, and that's it. And I think there are people that have that. Like, I would imagine Wynton Marsalis, right? I look up to this guy, as I'm sure many people do, has probably hundreds of instruments. But, you always see him play that Monette. And that Monette has an integral mouthpiece, and which means they're a real pain in the ass to change, right? It's not a quick swap out type thing. Every time I've watched him play, I'm not watching him change that mouthpiece ever. So he either picks one and goes start to finish with it, or he just has one and that's really all he uses. But there's this illusion that that's the case, where he has a trumpet, a mouthpiece. And I think I've gone so far off the deep end in trying to find a mouthpiece that I have, hundreds of mouthpieces now, as I'm sure many of you do as well. And it's kind of like, well, there's almost too many choices, right? So I wonder if my teachers and band directors back when I was a kid did that on purpose, because there's so many choices that it's really almost impossible to find that one that's right for you, especially as a young student, when you're really just learning your embouchure and trying to build up your scales and your chops and everything in your musicianship. You don't need that compounded by, I've got 20 different mouthpieces to pick from. Which one should I use in this setting? But I think that's really what it comes down to, is that the setting you're in might be what dictates what you end up using for equipment. And I think that's pretty obvious, and I don't think that that's in any way a revelation for anyone listening to this. But I think it's interesting that after all of this time and going back and forth, I've really landed on the 3L in brass. Really is kind of my go-to. That's just the mouthpiece that I start with. It feels good, but I really like also the Gen 2 versions, or any of these mouthpieces that have that satin finish on the inside of them. I have no idea why, but I really like that. I'm not sure that I'm a huge fan just yet of this new gold finish that they have, because it's a little sticky to my lips, which is odd, because typically gold mouthpieces are slippery. So I think they tried to go and they seem to have accomplished it. That perhaps they tried to get rid of the slippery feeling of gold and have it be more tactile feeling like a silver-plated mouthpiece. But in this case, to me, it's a noticeable tackiness that you get from these mouthpieces. And I've played them for a while now, so they're not like so new that it's just because it's brand new. It's a different feel. not bad, just different. So it's perhaps something to get used to, or something that really just instantly is the thing for you. Just like I'm calling out that the satin finish on the inside is absolutely the thing for me. So the thing to keep in mind here is that the Gen 1 Lotus all have a polished inner cup. And the Gen 2 and 3, whether it's the silver plated or this gold hybrid thing that they've made, both come with the satin finish internal cup. I don't know, maybe that was helpful to you. I hope it was. And, apologies for not putting any videos up lately. So I'll try to do better, because I do appreciate the interaction that I get on here. It's really cool to get some back and forth from some other players, on caliber with where I'm coming from. So cool. Thanks. See ya.